There we are. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to
Hi.
Saturday Night Live and Rambling. Uh, I'm Clay, joined by the lovely and gracious E Train, broadcasting from one of our
Mhm.
remote studios around the world. We are glad to be with you tonight. Um, been an interesting week, a good week. I hope a good week for y'all as well, and hopefully have a couple of good topics to review with you tonight. Taking a look at Suchir Balaji and his death, murder, suicide. We'll look into some of the circumstances surrounding that. And then we'll talk about kind of a big issue coming up. It's going to be a little bit bigger Monday with the new administration, and that is, should the Treasury buy crypto? So y'all stay tuned. Also, for new people, understand that we run a pretty open format. So if you have any questions or comments, if you're following on Twitter or Rumble, um, Ellen tracks those
Right.
and she will relay your questions. If you type a
Why,
question in on YouTube, it shows up directly.
why can't you see
Yeah,
me?
no, I see you. You're just frozen. And
Oh,
hello, Jane. How are you doing? And Melissa, good to see you. Here and listening, but occupied for a few. That's okay. Ellen is frozen. We don't know for how long, but she's just got this perfect still picture there. And she should get the kinks worked out before long. I guess she is going to try to restart. So we'll wish her luck. Ellen has developed some sort of a renown or reputation for technical um, issues.
hi. I'm back.
I'll be honest, it's because at the remote studios we have cheaper equipment, so we can blame it on the equipment,
Okay. Blame it on the rain. Whatever.
on the rain.
hmm
Jane, it's cold. Snow is on the way. Is that a bad thing? Do you like snow? They were talking earlier down here. Of course, I'm on the beach. They were talking earlier about 14 inches of snow, which would be like some kind of record. Now it's dropped to maybe a couple of inches, if we get that much. I kind of doubt
Good point, Jane.
it.
Good point.
Yeah, at least she never sounded like Alvin. And for those of you who didn't know, I had an extremely rare technical difficulty a couple of weeks ago. And everything I said was speeded up. I sounded a little bit like Alvin. So
A little
that
bit.
was a little bit. That was a
hmm
that was an interesting night on the show.
Yes, it
Um,
was.
everybody was happy except me.
hmm
I have a big snow blower. I have a. I was in Home Depot yesterday, and somebody was in there trying to buy a snow shovel, and I'm like, really? We just, yeah.
Yeah, not a thing.
We have a 50-year snow kind of thing here. Well, so
Yeah. Well,
I
Clay
just
sent me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, Clay sent me a video earlier this week, and he was like, "You might like this." I said, "Okay." So I took a look, and then I said, "Oh my God! Like, this is the craziest thing I've heard." And so we decided to do the show on Suchir Balaji. Um,
Eh,
if you think the Michael Livensberger and the Luigi Mangione case are interesting, this is something for this. I think this one tops it.
And that's kind of saying something.
hmm
Um, and this is, these are things that are right down Ellen's lane. She loves this kind of stuff. And
hmm
she did, most of a lot of the research on it. So give her, kudos from the beginning there. But we're going to start off talking about Suchir. Suchir Balaji, a young man, self-described AI researcher, AI, artificial intelligence researcher, who was deeply involved in the development and training of ChatGPT.
Um, Clay, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's an N in his name.
On the
Mm-hmm.
well, while I'm up, let me check, make sure. Nope, there is not.
Okay. I just wanted to. We do know that that's a mistake. That's no big deal.
Yeah. Humble apologies. Sometimes, I will personally get with the idiot that typed this out and make sure that doesn't happen again.
You should do that.
Yes, I'm the idiot. So, but Suchir was a self-described AI researcher, which is kind of an interesting name. He was deeply involved in the development and training of ChatGPT. He worked for them for 4 years before resigning due to concerns about the development of the AI system, AI in general, and particularly the ethical or unethical practices used by the company in developing it. He resigned in August of 24. In October, and we'll fill some of this in as we go along, but in October, the New York Times published a story detailing these concerns that he had, which is kind of interesting that the New York Times would give it that much publicity with a quote-unquote disgruntled employee. Well, a month after that article came out, the San Francisco Police Department found his body in his apartment. And there are a number of questions about allegations or concerns as far as the particulars surrounding his death. So tonight we're going to, take a few minutes and examine Suchir's life and the questions surrounding his death. First of all, who was he? I want to say as a young man, but he was 26. To me, that's still a young man. But anyway, he was quite accomplished as a student. His achievements include being a finalist for the U.S. Computing Olympiad. He attended and graduated from Berkeley, University of Cal, Berkeley, after receiving a TSA. TSA is the agency that does the airport security. Well, they had a competition for coming up with a computer algorithm to try to improve passenger screening. He won that competition. Graduated in 2021. He had interned for OpenAI, and they offered him a full-time position. He was 31st at the ACM International Collegiate Programming Contest in the World Finals. And he just has a litany of awards. First place at the Pacific Regional Berkeley Programming Contest, et cetera, et cetera. This was an extremely gifted individual in terms of understanding, utilizing, adapting, programming algorithms, and in particular, learning algorithms. He was, by the age of 22, I think it's fair to describe him as one of the more accomplished individuals in the field of AI.
Definitely. I mean, he took a year off before he went to college and got a $25,000 signing bonus to work. I can't remember what company it was. And his parents convinced him to go to college.
One of the founders of the company, OpenAI, John Schulman, previously expressed that Suchir was vital to OpenAI due to his optimization and fine-tuning of the Chat GTP algorithm to make it more efficient. As well as his meticulousness in programming, he had what coders would describe as brilliant coding. Coding is basically like a language, and some people can, communicate in a language. Some people are fluent in it. Some people can teach others the grammar and all of that. Kind of the best analogy I guess I could come up with. He was, so to speak, a teacher of the teachers. Just an extremely gifted individual in this area. Now, like I mentioned earlier, he worked for 4 years at OpenAI, part of the pre-training team. And training, AI needs to be taught. Suchir wrote a paper after he left OpenAI describing, some of his thoughts or beliefs in how AI should work. And he pointed out the difference between learning and intelligence. Intelligence has the ability to improve itself. AI really doesn't have that ability. What it can do is go out and consume vast amounts of data and then synthesize it. It doesn't necessarily possess original thought or creative skills. It just takes what it's learned and is able to put it in whatever context you tell it you want. And so, but that's still an extremely difficult coding challenge to teach it how to learn and how to, quote unquote, reason. He was deeply involved in that aspect, the development and teaching and reasoning ability of AI.
And in collecting his team, I think he led the team that collected all the data that it was Web GPT at the time that turned into Chat GPT, but that was fed into it, grabbing all the data, feeding it into. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
And feeding it into the AI, I guess the model, is what you'd call it.
Yep.
That turned into Chat GPT.
And keep in mind, it is the depth of his involvement. You think somebody's been at a company for 4 years, you think they are just learning the ropes. This guy, even as an intern, was creating the rope. And he had extensive involvement and depth in this field, as much as anybody in the field. Well, obviously he was in a position to experience, from his involvement, he was in a position to experience extremely high future financial rewards. And he did something very interesting to me, fascinatingly interesting. I don't know how to describe it enough. He spoke up. He saw wrong and he spoke up. Not only endangering his financial future, but the company's as well. How many people could do that? Go ahead.
One of the things that he mentioned, not that I've spoken to him, but that I researched, that he didn't have a problem with any of it until Chat GPT started bringing in then he was like, wait a minute.
A lot of people had an issue with that because OpenAI started as a nonprofit research entity. That's when Elon Musk was involved, helped found it, was helping fund it, et cetera, et cetera. Well, some of the powers that be, aka Sam Altman, decided that they had a product that they could sell, and so he turned a nonprofit into a profit-making company. I'm not sure exactly how you do that legally, but nobody has seemed to contest it. But that's when he and Elon kind of had a parting of the ways.
Mm-hmm.
And Altman has really been the sole conductor in terms of the direction and attributes that Chat GTP is taking. Well, Suchir, Elon, several people haven't exactly, how do I put this? Haven't exactly been impressed with Altman's character or some of his direction or goals.
Or his morals or ethics.
Yeah. So, as some of this started changing, Suchir saw wrong and he spoke up, which, back to my point, how many people would do that if they saw something they felt was morally wrong? And if they had millions, possibly billions to gain from the future, and even endangering the jobs of friends that they worked with. I mean, that's a tough position. That's a hell of a position to be in. Hats off to him, because that is what he did. And he did this because of what he saw as extremely unethical practices as they trained the AI, and he felt like ultimately it was going to do more harm than good. And so he felt like it needed exposure. So Balaji argued that AI, specifically OpenAI, who he was most familiar with, but it really applies to all the AI out there probably, used copyrighted materials to learn and profit from. Now, to take copyright material and use it for your own profit without the express consent of the authors is illegal and is considered a form of plagiarism. In research, you have to be extremely careful about passing off others' work as your own. This is not only, taking words they have written, but ideas or models that they have created. Images, whatever that somebody else has created, and passing it off as your own without giving them, attributes, and if it's for profit, without, compensating them appropriately. Well, that's in essence what AI does. It will pass on information it has gleaned from other sites without crediting them. These other sites lose traffic, and oftentimes the AI will pass on incorrect information. And they're making money, able to charge hand over fist. That's kind of an interesting proposition if you think about it. It's the ultimate Google, so to speak. And it doesn't, Google will at least direct you to somebody's site to find the information. AI doesn't do that. It just gives you the information. An interesting proposition if you think about it. Well, as you can imagine, there's several legal challenges to OpenAI related to its data usage. Many people think Suchir was shaping the discourse, so to speak. Now, he wasn't specifically involved in any lawsuit against OpenAI. There are several, but few, if any, knew the inside story as well as he did. No other insider that I'm aware of or could find was coming out of the closet. So in one sense, that made him singularly the most important voice on how AI works and how it should work. He was the first one, the leading voice to speak out about AI's, I'm just going to say AI's evil and potential for harm. Now, his mother was interviewed on Tucker Carlson. If you haven't seen it, it's an interesting watch. And she has intimated that the New York Times has some documents given to them by Suchir to help back his story. The family doesn't have access to them yet. The Times legally can't release them. It won't publish them. It hadn't published them yet. It won't publish them because apparently lacking attribution or confirmation or whatever. but he can't give them to the family because they are not yet the legal representatives of his estate. His father is apparently being appointed executor, and that will become final later this month.
Did we mention, it may have been when I disappeared for a minute, that he was killed on the 22nd of November and it was
I don't
ruled a
think,
suicide?
yeah, I don't think I have actually.
Okay.
Um, yes, let me just back up to that point. His birthday was actually the 21st, the day before. He had been vacationing with some friends, old schoolmates, for his birthday,
In the
and
Catalina Islands.
yeah, was just happy and celebrating and carrying on. And he was telling them about all of his future plans. He had communicated his future plans to his family and friends or whatever. There was absolutely no signs of any depression, anger, resentment, fear or whatever. And then the next day, when arriving back in San Francisco, his death occurred. I'm hesitant to say he was killed. I'm hesitant to say he committed suicide. The San Francisco PD investigated, quote unquote, and they ruled it a suicide. There was an autopsy. The ME ruled it a suicide. Well, the family, particularly when they viewed his room after the police allowed them entry, was convinced it was not suicide.
The people at the funeral home
Yes.
actually suggested that the family get an independent autopsy.
Yes. And we'll get into some of that in just a second. Let me finish this point about the times
Okay.
while
Okay.
I've got it on my mind. So the father should be appointed executor of the state at the end of the month. And at that point, the Times will give the executor, the legal representative of the estate, the documents or copies of the documents. So I think we're going to find out what actually other information Suchir had. The mother was intimating that this is something outside of copyright infringement, which there are several points about that we're going to talk about a little bit more in a minute. So to me, there's a story behind the story. We don't know the rest of the story yet. But was fentanyl found in his system? We haven't seen that. San Francisco hadn't released the autopsy report. His family hadn't released their autopsy report. So we don't know exactly, but there has been no mention of any drugs. He had no history that we know of any drug usage. He was just, pretty much a clean, all-American brainiac kind of guy. Kind of a gentle spirit, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also, his mom mentioned that, after his death, immediately after his death, they were given, his possessions, including his cell phone. And a few days after, before the story broke in the news, they got a call from another journalist who, had seen his article in the Times and wanted to retain him as a witness in a lawsuit. Now, that's all she said. She didn't go into a lot of details, but she's again kind of intimating that this is something beyond just a copyright. So
And,
that's curious to me.
and Jane, fentanyl popping up in all kinds of stuff, even some legal stuff. Yet this was the medical examiner for San Francisco ruled it a gunshot wound to the head.
Which is even more interesting. So, as Ellen referred, SFPD said that he ruled that he committed suicide. The ME's report committed suicide. Now, like we've already mentioned, no one to my knowledge, haven't been able to find anyone who indicated in any wit that he was depressed, sad, confused, angry, bitter, anything negative. Everybody pretty much described him as happy, easygoing, looking forward to his future. They all testify to his sound mind and positive outlook for his career. He had concrete plans for his career and was apparently financially secure.
Yeah, and he
And
had an interview on the 2nd of December, I believe, with Associated Press. I mean, he
yeah,
had things that were happening.
and his goal was to create a nonprofit entity and quote unquote serve humanity. He apparently financially was already set for the rest of his life, and he decided he wanted to use his time, energy, abilities for more charitable work. So that doesn't sound necessarily like somebody that's suicidal.
Mm-mm.
As Ellen mentioned, after the autopsy, the body was transferred to a funeral home, and the funeral director, after examining the body, called the family and said, I know this is a little bit unusual. I've never heard of it before, but he suggested that they get a independent autopsy because, when it was released from the morgue at the ME, it came attached with a suicide kind of thing. We don't know specifically why the funeral director suggested that, but this is a guy that's seen thousands of bodies, thousands of deaths through the years. And just him looking at it, he could tell that something was not right.
Yeah, and the San Francisco medical examiner, the the statement was that the gunshot punctured his brainstem and killed him immediately. That was in their report.
And the
After,
second,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, the second autopsy was performed by Dr. Dennis Rao. Pointed out that the bullet did not hit the brain stem, did not hit the brain stem, and did not kill him, was not responsible for the death.
And that's when his family ordered a second investigation.
Or requested one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. They did an independent.
Which San Francisco PD's refused so far. Now, the family has photos. One of them or two of them was on Tucker. But blood is all over the apartment. Now, like Ellen says, SFPD says the gunshot hit the brainstem. They failed to explain why there is blood all over the apartment and why the apartment has apparently been ransacked.
And why there was a plastic bag with his saliva on the inside, and it was bloody.
Yeah, and the image report and the second autopsy both reveal that the bullet traveled at a downward angle. That's why it missed his brain and his brainstem. Traveled at a downward angle and did not kill him.
Suicide like this.
Yeah,
like
holding
that.
a gun at an angle up above you. That's just weird. That's just weird. And if looking at the one or two pictures that are available, there is blood that is directly fallen, not splattered, but fallen into the sink. And if you've ever been around injuries, when blood is just dripping, it makes one pattern. When a bullet is passing through, there's splatter, there's misting, there's, it creates a very big splatter pattern upon exit. Well, there, there's blood all over the bathroom, with some of it pooled. And then as you're leaving the bathroom, there's a trail, and there's a big pool out on the rug. The downward trajectory of the bullet, to me, suggests he was sitting when he was shot. There's no real stool in the bathroom. And if he had been leaning or sitting on the counter, you would have wholly different blood patterns, splatter patterns. I'm not a forensic examiner, but I've seen a few things. In addition, in the main blood pool on the carpet, there was a piece of wig lying on top of the pool. There's a tuft of hair from a clip of a wig. The bloody wig was found, over on the side in the apartment. The hairs were not his. He never wore a wig. He didn't have a wig, to anybody's knowledge. And even the hairs in the clip aren't his. So you've got a bullet angle going down 35 to 45 degrees, missed the brain. You've got a blood trail. You've got a weird blood pattern and splatter in the bathroom. The gun was found in the apartment, a Glock, 9mm. And the interesting thing is, gun purchases in San Francisco, California, are pretty restrictive. We know he had applied for a permit, but there's been no evidence that the permit had been granted yet, or that he had ever purchased a gun. His parents were not aware of him purchasing a gun, which he's very close to his parents.
They talk like every day.
Yeah. They also found a earbud and a toothpick in the garbage next to the sink, like it was knocked out of him. Appears he was hit on the back of the head, possibly while brushing his teeth. Like I say, there's blood directly falling down in the sink, but the trail leads out, and then some big pooling outside of the bathroom. It's just weird. The pictures taken by the family just don't fit. It's a weird looking suicide, so to speak. Now, also of interest is the family hired two different attorneys. Both have appeared to sit on the case. The first one did absolutely nothing. So after 4 or 5 weeks, zero progress, not really doing anything, they dismissed him and hired a second one. The second one hired a crime scene investigator who apparently called the ME, talked to the ME, and, agreed with the ME that it was suicide. Now, the family, convinced that it was not a suicide, suspects that these attorneys, the crime scene investigator, who's most likely a former cop, though I'm not sure who he is kind of compromised by the system or someone else. I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying this is what the family suspects. That's why the family started bringing all of this out to the public, because they were making zero progress going through the police channels and the legal channels. Like I say, the family also believes it's more than a copyright issue. Didn't really say what it was, but there's, Tucker kind of teased out of her that there's some issue with stolen data. So is it, confidential data? Is it government data? It would obviously have to be pretty damn significant data. Now, keep in mind that roughly 20 days before he was killed, OpenAI has been the target of several lawsuits. But 20 days before he was killed or died, OpenAI won two lawsuits. Well, they didn't win. They had two lawsuits dismissed against them in a New York federal court. The judge ruled that OpenAI's use of articles from the two litigants, Raw Story and Afternet, didn't really damage these companies significantly. So without damage or injury, the judge ruled they really had no recourse.
There wasn't
Now,
enough evidence to prove that there was enough harm done to the company, but they were going to appeal that.
the judge did say they could refile under a different basis if they wanted to as well. So, that's not over yet. But interestingly, Suchir would have been a hell of a witness in that kind of case. But since OpenAI had the two cases dismissed, one might infer that would reduce the motive for, AI proponents to be behind Suchir's death because they were winning in the courts. But if there is more, if there's a story behind the story, something else that needs to be kept buried, you've still got motive. There's nothing yet specific identified. So this is just pure speculation. And there's still a number of lawsuits by other newspapers and other organizations, which are also in the New York district.
The New York Times, is that their lawsuit is coming up.
Yeah, and I believe Minneapolis and just papers from all over are suing. So now there's been some, kind of laying out for this to be a murder. The first thing that pops in most people's minds would be that it was a hit, a targeted assassination. So there has to be some sort of motive. Well, what's the motive? That's kind of what I've been getting at. Is there really a motive?
The money. Follow the money.
Secondly, this is a sloppy job. Whoever did it either is not very professional or was trying to make it look unprofessional. It really doesn't look like a suicide.
Or maybe it didn't matter, Clay, because they were going to rule it a suicide anyway.
Could be. But, just in terms of the pictures, the evidence, the conflicting ME reports we have so far, there is nothing neat and clean about this. You really wouldn't describe it as professional, which is kind of interesting to me because you would think if big money was behind it, they could retain somebody with decent skills. I don't know. But it's as far as deaths go, it's terribly confusing. Whole lot of inconsistencies here and there. It's a fascinating case. Now, some people on the internet have kind of intimated that perhaps OpenAI was behind it, Sam Altman. A number of people have, commented on their low view of Sam. Elon Musk being one of those. Interestingly, Sam Altman, who runs OpenAI, was also named head of the transition team for the new San Francisco mayor. Pretty prominent guy in a pretty prominent position. Pretty prominently politically connected there in San Francisco.
That's damn ironic. I'm just saying.
Yeah, some people think there could be possible influence there impacting or pressuring the investigation. Don't know. Just throwing out kind of the rumors that don't seem just hugely disconnected. I mean, obviously, anytime there's, some conflict or some crime, there's always, rumors. But some of these things kind of could be connected. They may not end up being connected. But it's a fascinating case.
I don't believe in coincidences.
Ordinarily, they're not coincidences, particularly if they happen repeatedly.
Yep.
So
They have retained, I don't know if you saw this today. Suchir's family has retained an attorney.
a
They had to
third
put up
one,
they had to put up $100,000 retainer.
a third one for a third one.
The third one.
Well, I hope they got a shark.
I hope they have a shark that's not afraid.
Yeah. Um, you know, there's big money here. Many have called AI the future of our lives, not just the future of computing, but the future of our lives. So, it makes me wonder, was Suchir an impediment to that future? I mean, if so, that's motive.
Well, I don't
I
know
mean,
because he was also looking to create his own that would have been a more, I guess, responsible. He no, he didn't like that. It was just that um, OpenAI was just taking information from humans who are flawed and have opinions and not all facts, and sort of just spitting it back out.
yeah, but keep in mind, everybody in the world is trying to develop better AI. The Chinese, the Russians,
Mhm.
the Iranians, everybody.
Yeah, but and Sachir wanted to do it as well, but he didn't like what was going on um, at Altman's company. He his parents refused to speak to Altman.
Well, think about the point here. The point is who develops the most powerful AI? The ones that are able to synthesize the most information, or the ones who have more restrictions on what information they can use and how they can use it?
Well, I mean, I think the I mean,
You
I
got
get
to think of it in terms of power.
I understand your point, but if the information is flawed, then shit in, shit out.
Copyright information or private or secret information isn't necessarily flawed.
Have you read the New York Times?
I'm just saying it's not necessarily flawed, particularly if it's secret or private or restricted data.
Was that he wasn't going after that though? That wasn't his point. His point though was that it
That's
was
kind
copyrighted.
that's kind of the intimation that his family is saying, and they're wondering what are these documents that he
Right,
had. That's the story behind the story, maybe.
right, right.
The copyright issue, OpenAI has been winning in the courts.
I know.
So that kind of reduces any motives there. But if there's something else underlying that, that could be a bigger motive.
It could be.
That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm going to be a pain in your ass right now because I know you hate it when I do this. There's no N in Sachir either. What is it with you and N's today?
I don't know. I we kind of shifted on this just yesterday, and so I really only had the day with working on it, and I
I know.
guess I just read
I
it
just
real
got it.
quick and just went with it. Sorry.
No, I'm just picking on you.
Yeah.
I get to do
No,
that.
I should be more careful about that, but I really didn't have time to go through and proof
I know.
everything.
I know. I know.
So, humble apologies if I have offended anybody with misspelling the name. I sincerely apologize. Um, so, to me, the question is, was Sunshine right when he was saying Chat GPT was doing more harm than good? Does is AI really stealing others' property? Does the commercial viability of the future outweigh the commercial viability of individuals? If individuals aren't being compensated for their work, is this really a sustainable model for the internet and for future information? There's a lot of serious questions, but I kind of, in the back of my mind, think this may go well beyond just copyright and information issue. I mean, copyright information issues.
Yeah, he was a custodial witness. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the documents that the New York Times has. And that's
But
why they aren't releasing them till the family is declared the legal representatives.
okay, why is that?
Because
They're sealed.
these documents legally belong to the estate, and so
Okay,
they can't turn them over to anybody that's not the legal representative of the estate.
and they can't open them because they said
Apparently, they have opened them, but they're not
okay,
publishing them for
okay,
reasons I'm not sure of. I would say probably lack of corroboration, particularly when the lead expert involved with those is dead.
was killed. Sorry.
Yeah,
In my opinion, none of this makes sense.
it doesn't. It really doesn't. Now, I mentioned that Musk was a critic, and that's putting it kind of mildly. Musk was really incensed when OpenAI turned public, profit making. These are just some of the posts I captured from his his Twitter. OpenAI, I don't know if you can see them, but OpenAI is evil. OpenAI cannot be trusted. OpenAI is a lie. And replying to, you remember, I don't know, a year, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, Sam Altman was fired for a few days by the board. Well, I think this guy, Iliutz, is the board member. And Elon Musk is asking him, why did you take such a drastic action? If OpenAI is doing something potentially dangerous to humanity, the world needs to know. And that was in November of 23. So Musk has been, since OpenAI turned into a for-profit company, Musk has been a huge critic, and he's reposted repeatedly, OpenAI is evil.
Hmm.
So that's kind of interesting. Now, for those of you who, want to, see some of the other current activity going on, there
Or
is.
donate to help his family pay for all these bills they're picking up right now.
Do you have a link, or do they have a funding site or something?
If you, I'm going to.
While she's doing that, here is one of the, I still call it Twitter, X sites,
There's no end.
Justice for Suchir. We get it. Thank you.
Oh no, it was on your slide again for the
Yeah, I
hashtag.
know. It's like I say, it's all through there. So
Okay,
I can't go and change my slides real quick here.
I know. I'm sorry.
But here's one of the sites. There is also, well, if I can get this to work. Well, it's not working. Let me try this.
Here is the GoFundMe.
There is also a meme coin. Now, I would be careful with that GoFundMe because I am not sure that's associated with the family. Somebody could have just created that to take money. So before you make a donations, verify it. See where the family is saying, yes, we created this, we control the money.
It is.
So
It is her. She's the organizer.
well, just make sure it's independently verified because I've seen some of these put up as scams before. That's all I'm saying. This is a meme coin that has been created called Suchir, a meme coin, which to me is kind of amazing. So there's all sorts of, kind of public things surrounding this case. The key is there's going to be a whole lot more coming out the next month or two. The family is actually pressing for federal investigations, claiming his status as a whistleblower makes it a federal case. Now, Elon Musk has also expressed interest and support for additional investigation. So, with Musk's curiosity and his new contacts in DC, I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen, to see the feds open up an investigation. In addition, the main impact of all this may be a shift in public perception about AI, and particularly AI companies, placing them under more strict scrutiny and criticism. Right now, AI is just a big black hole. There are no really consistent values or principles or anything, guiding these companies. They haven't really released what they do, how they do it, what their limits are. I do know there have been a number of people leaving the AI industry, and I imagine sooner or later some of them will talk. And the stories they could tell. So this will be a story that we keep up with. If anyone watching has some additional info, email us, moffatonmoney@gmail.com, or DM me on X at moffatonmoney. We'd love to hear from you.
I did just check X, and his mother did repost this.
Okay, good.
Okay, and then here we go.
Let's see. Neuromancer 420. Peter Thiel and Sam Altman are close after Thiel helped Altman with his board reinstatement. Interestingly, Suchir supported Altman's reinstatement. His parting with him happened later. His, I guess, conflict with him occurred later. Don't know exactly what spurred it or when. But when, and again, we don't know exactly why Altman was fired. Till the PayPal Mafia Don has been calling the shots during the incumbent transition.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what shots. Altman seems to be pretty independent, but that's an interesting perspective, interesting thought. I'd like more information on that. This whistleblower assassination is a coordinated strike from the PayPal Mafia and their integration with the deep state. Yeah, if you've got some, information or links or contacts, send them to me. Would be glad to look at them. I don't, over the past 4 or 5 years, I've kind of learned I don't dismiss most anything out of hand anymore.
Yeah.
I can't necessarily recommend it as from what I have discovered or seen, but I am willing to look at anything. So if you have some information, I would love to see it. moffatonmoney@gmail.com. Or you can just DM me on X. Love to hear from you. Anybody else have any other comments on AI, on Suchir, on the assassination / suicide?
I just think this just stinks rotten of a cover up.
It certainly has a lot of stench surrounding it. There's just, I'm not a detective, I'm not a forensics guy, but you can look at the photos the family took of the apartment, at least the ones that have been released, and have extreme doubts that it was a suicide. You can look at the, even the comments that have been publicly released on the ME's reports. We don't have the detail in the ME's reports yet, but there's just some terrible inconsistencies. There's some gross inconsistencies. One of those two MEs is either grossly incompetent or an outright liar.
Or being paid off or threatened or something.
A liar. Yeah. So,
Jane.
I personally think it's going to come out about the militarization of Chat GPT. I would think instead of, having it public, that they would just kind of like Google. The Google actually started because the founders started out working for the CIA, developing algorithms to gather information from around the internet and aggregate it. They took that algorithm and converted it into a public use, Google, named it Google. And obviously, the CIA has a much different version. But when did Google start? Early 2000s?
God, I can't remember.
Yeah, so the CIA was aggregating and sorting and collecting information before. They were way ahead of everybody else. And I don't doubt but what the same thing holds true with AI. I think they have been using AI and collecting information, private and public, for quite some time.
And like I said before, I know you said I have to embrace AI. I don't trust it.
I don't say you have to embrace it. I just say, you have to understand
practical reality.
Practical reality is it's here and it's coming. Now, I try to limit AI's access to my information. And I understand the practical reality is that, there could be an analyst at the NSA or CIA or DIA that's, hacked into my camera and is watching me even when my camera's off. When your phone is off, even if you turn the off switch, you still can be listened to. It still can film you.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So the ability of the agencies to gather intel is unlimited, per se. And they've got things that we're just completely unaware of. Couldn't imagine. They can drive by a house, and this is 10 years old, 15 years old. They could drive by a house and tap into the different Wi-Fi signals and develop kind of this X-ray image of people or things in the house. And they can use just regular bouncing Wi-Fi signals to create images, kind of like an X-ray type image of people in the house. And that's 10 or 15 years ago.
Scary.
Imagine what they can do now. We have some terribly talented people at the intelligence agencies. So I'm glad for that, but I also kind of value my privacy. I'm one of those old school types that I just don't want anybody knowing my business. And nowadays we live in an era where people buy the mics and put it in their house. They buy Siri and Alexa and whatever else.
Let me ask you this. If you were moving somewhere and you had the option of regular internet or Starlink, what would you do?
I would go with Starlink because I like to travel, and you can take Starlink, you make Starlink mobile. Have a little dish, travel with you. If you're in the remote mountains or whatever, you still have access to the internet.
Fair enough.
Starlink is more expensive, but that flexibility is not a bad thing. So,
Excellent.
um, yeah, I have thought about converting, but I'm not quite there yet.
I trust your
But
opinion since I'm
yeah,
getting the washer and dryer that you recommended.
but that's not an accident that she threw that out. I am jealous as hell. And for y'all interested in the side story, I've hated my washer and dryer for a while. I mean, my dryer literally takes an hour and a half, 2 hours to dry a modest load.
A t-shirt.
And I mean, I've checked the heater, I've tried, checking the blower. Everything seems to be working. Nothing is really out of whack. It just sucks. And so I wanted to, I've thought or wanted to get a new washer and dryer. And the ones I've decided to get are Speed Queen. Well, the thing is, I'm probably going to sell the house and move before long. So I don't want to buy a new washer and dryer and have to move them, or if I rent a place temporarily, store them, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just like, no, I just get by with these for a little while longer. So I haven't done anything. Well, Ellen went out and bought some. She asked me what I thought, and I told her she buys exactly what I wanted. So I'm just jealous as hell. And I'm going to be really, really jealous as hell if they work well as I think they will.
Well, I asked for your opinion and you told me. I was like, I need to buy a washer dryer. Do you have any recommendations? Oh, what's this?
Look at Gary Network. All right, I'm going to make a note. I'm not going to do it now, but I will try to track that down. And that's the cool thing about this show and the internet is there are people with information or that have come across information I don't or didn't today. Like I say, this just really came to my attention a couple days ago. I sent it to Ellen, and yesterday she was like, let's do it. And so really just focused on some of the details today. And I know there's a lot out there that I don't know. So if y'all have something, please share it. We will try to use whatever we can to bring it to light. Sky, my 3-year-old Maytag just died. Luckily, it's under warranty. Maytag washer.
Speed Queen has a 7-year warranty.
And the thing is, Ellen was just saying the other day that when she was in the appliance store looking, she apparently saw a Speed Queen looking and comparing it to a Maytag. You want to tell them?
Oh, about I don't even know what you call it. It's part of
The agitator?
Yeah. It's the rod, or I guess whatever that does that. Yeah. It weighs about 4 times what the Maytag does. And it is like super heavy duty. I was like, holy cow, this is a machine. So yeah.
Yeah, that is.
He's still upset. He actually sent me a text and I hate you. I'm mad at you.
And like I say, if she actually gets them, I'm going to hate her even more.
I am going to get them. I've already paid for them.
Every time I go up and throw a load in or throw a load in the dryer, I just kind of cuss under my breath. It's just irritating as hell.
He cusses me now under his breath. Damn Ellen.
Jane, I hate my energy efficient washer and dryers. I agree it takes forever to do a wash and at least 2 hours to dry something. That's ridiculous. It's just utterly, utterly ridiculous. And Speed Queen, I think, from what I understand, allows you to adjust the water and will dry in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, according to reports. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'm good with that. A washer that actually cleans better, a dryer that actually dries better, and a washer and dryer that won't need repairs for 25 years.
They test them for a 25-year life, and then you have a 7-year warranty.
Yeah, it's a complete warranty. It's not a partial. I'm good with that. And they do cost a little bit more, but I'm thinking I'm good with that. because and my mom had these old units. I kept them until they died, and they were, I don't know, they were probably 20 or 30 years old. But the washer, I swear my clothes were cleaner. The dryer worked in 30 minutes. I think we have the technology. I think we have the ability to do that. But a lot of the modern appliances have just lost that ability.
Mm-hmm.
Jane, I just started hanging my stuff to dry. Sometimes that's not bad on a pretty spring day, but one, I don't have the time. This last month and probably for most of next month, I've been busy as hell. Just a lot going on work wise. Got a consulting project and got a student competition, plus a couple classes. So it's been real hectic. I've been doing 12, 13-hour days. I just don't have time to waste waiting 2 hours for clothes to dry and having to restart the dryer. It's just irritating.
Mm-hmm.
As much as that crap cost.
I'm gonna start just posting videos of the time it takes me to do laundry and videoing the speed queens.
Yeah. So I was telling her, I was telling her the other day, I kind of hope that they suck and they don't work as good as what I've heard. And then I kind of hope that they do, so I'll know what I'm buying is actually doing what it says it'll do. So I'm kind of torn. But I am sure that we will hear the rest of the story once Ellen gets them in.
One of because I wanted the black ones, which Clay's mad about too. I can't remember if it's the washer or the dryer. One of them is not in stock. They ordered it. It's going to be here at the end of January or 1st of February. So it'll be a couple weeks.
And in the meantime, I'm still going to be jealous.
You'll be more jealous after I get them.
And she loves it.
I do.
All right. Enough of the irritating washer dryer saga. But don't worry, we will get back to it, before too long.
Mm-hmm.
The second main topic for the night is crypto in the Treasury. Should the Treasury, buy crypto? I almost think it's getting close to being an afterthought. I started to title it, will the Treasury buy crypto? But then it's kind of like, no, I kind of think they're going to do it. So should they do it? So in order to understand whether or not, the context, put all of this in context, talk about where we are, where we've been as far as the Treasury and the dollar. Now, in her final act as Treasury Secretary, our much loved, Secretary Treasury Janet Yellen stated 2 days ago that the U.S. Treasury will hit its debt ceiling on January 21st.
Oh, isn't that just freaking...
Is that perfect timing or what? Yeah. The first day of the new administration will have a little mini financial crisis because the Treasury can't borrow any more money. Which, thinking about it,
it's a good thing.
Well, it spends more than what it receives.
Yeah.
So it can only cover this difference based on, one, its cash reserves, and two, money it takes from other accounts, like retirement accounts. So, let's take a look at what all this actually means when the government can't pay its bills.
Hang on. Doge. Elon, Vivek, fix it.
Yeah, it won't be a quick fix, unfortunately. It'll take a few years, but
they're ready to cut.
It needs to be done.
They're going to cut shit day one.
Yeah, we'll see how much they can do. I'm all for them, but I don't think it'll be a quick solution.
I agree, Jane.
And I've pointed this out a few times, I guess, on some other social media, but some of the decisions that have been made the last few weeks are literally just like trying to make things as difficult as they can for the new administration and put them in a position where they have to spend more. Like, we had a bunch of fencing left over, and about a month ago, like for the border fence
There we
that
go.
was
Yeah.
unused, like a month ago, this administration started trying to sell it for scrap. So they would receive, $5 a ton. Meanwhile, to replace it, we'd have to spend, $1,000 per set. Whatever. I don't know the exact numbers, but you get the idea. It was like, it's just spiteful. Why try to sell that when this incoming administration, the people who voted for it, want to have that fence built?
Another 500 million to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Thank you
They
very much.
Yeah, billions more to Ukraine when LA, Western Carolina, Eastern Tennessee have been utterly hammered. And 2 weeks ago, FEMA canceled the hotel vouchers for people that didn't have a home and had been living in hotels. FEMA canceled their hotel vouchers, or they ended. FEMA didn't renew them. And so these people were kicked out, and it was 16 degrees at night. 16 degrees, and they're sleeping in their car or tents. There are thousands of people in the Appalachia who don't have a decent place to sleep. And FEMA has just basically folded up shop and left. Now, due to all the pressure and attention, 2 weeks later, FEMA has decided to renew the vouchers, or at least some of them. I don't know all the details, but you've got people in LA, in, like I say, Eastern Tennessee, Western North Carolina, Northern Georgia, who are really, really in a bad way. And rather than sending $500 billion to Ukraine in repeated increments over the last month, why couldn't some of this money be used to help Americans that are really, really in need? Anyway.
Especially when the American people are paying for it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you're taking tax money and giving it to other people while Americans are suffering. That is just insane to me.
In a war that everybody agrees will come to a halt in the next few weeks. Yeah. Ukraine has repeatedly wanted to stop it and has been thwarted by the UK and the US. Russia has repeatedly wanted to stop it and has been thwarted by Ukraine being unable to accept the terms. There was an accord a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, the Minsk Accords, that would have stopped the war. Ukraine agreed to it. Russia agreed to it. The US and the UK nixed it. People are dying and being massacred for absolutely no good reason.
Why is it that Ukraine and Russia, if they both want to end it, can't get together? Why do we have to inject ourselves into the equation?
It's what we do.
Because we want to take more money from the American people, and we just think that that's just a better way to spend it, throwing it away, than helping ourselves.
I don't know.
It pisses me off. I'm sorry.
Ukraine is about to run out of men age 18 to 50, 55. A vast majority of them have been killed. That war is just a meat grinder for young men, Russian and Ukrainian. And, what is Ukraine going to be like the next 20, 30, 50 years going forward with no men?
The 51st state.
It'll be mostly women. I mean, overwhelmingly female. So,
there's no procreation going on there.
There's no procreation. There's nobody to do the dirty jobs.
Yep.
The heavy lifting, that kind of thing. So this is going to have a huge impact on that country going forward for generations.
Ooh, I have an idea.
The damage is just untold.
I have an idea.
What?
The manly men from the United States who can't get anywhere because of the, well, can I say it? The extremely liberal women who have just cut their balls off, figuratively, can go to Ukraine, procreate with those women who I doubt are as indoctrinated as some of the females here are.
They're probably more oriented towards traditional
Yeah,
positions.
yeah,
It'd probably be a lot of people, getting Eastern European wives. So
just saying.
things are changing. But the debt, looking at the debt, over the past 4 years, the Biden administration has spent and failed to replace 1.6 trillion in cash reserves that the Treasury had when it took office. This while spending soared and monthly borrowing soared. To give you some idea of the numbers, this graph that you see, this tall peak is where the reserves were when Trump left office. Here's where the reserves are now. That's an additional, that's $1 trillion different. There's roughly $660 billion left in the reserve. So that's what the administration has to work with over the next few months in order to try to make ends meet until they can get the debt limit increased. Now, in addition, the way the current administration has staggered debt maturities, they issue debt and it might be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 20 years, 30 years. Well, if you issue 2-year, 3-year, you get a lower rate, but it matures and you have to refinance it, refund it. So the way that this Janet Yellen has staggered the maturities, there is about $10 trillion in treasuries maturing this year, 2025, plus $2 trillion in new debt. That's already locked in. That's not really going to be able to change much. That's already in the budget. Plus this additional $1 trillion in replacing the cash reserve. So that's roughly about $13 trillion in new treasuries being issued this year, give or take. Compare that with the 2 or 3 trillion a year 4 years ago. So we normally issue $2 or $3 trillion a year in bonds, including refinancing. This year, we're going to do about 13 trillion. So the supply is absolutely blowing up. Looking at buyers, potential buyers, the biggest buyers for the past decade and a half, 2 decades have been China, Japan, Saudi Arabia. All three of those are no longer buying treasuries. In fact, they are selling some of the treasuries they have. So there's even more supply than what the U.S. is going to be offering this year. So supply and demand, still a law. And the more supply there is, when demand drops, well, that causes the price to drop, the price the Treasury receives for each bond. As this price drops, bonds are like a teeter-totter. And I've explained this a couple times before, the teeter-totter. You've got two things that move, the price and the yield. So if the price drops, the yield goes up. The interest rate that the Treasury has to pay increases, teeter-totter. As price goes up, interest rates go down. And vice versa. If interest rates go up, price goes. So it's a teeter-totter-like effect, an inverse effect. So as demand drops, but supply increases, price is going to drop. And that price drop is going to result in higher interest rates. And every interest rate in our society is based off the Treasury interest rates. So mortgages are based pretty much off the 10-year Treasury. Well, just since the Fed starting cutting rates in August, September, the 10-year Treasury yield has increased a full percentage point. Mortgage rates have actually increased. They're up to 7 and a quarter. I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see them hitting 8% before long and possibly going higher. So, again, kind of another secondary financial crisis or big problem for this administration to handle this upcoming year. What's all this mean? How much higher is everything going to go? I can't precisely say. As interest rates go up, you may get some other new buyers in the market. I don't know. It just depends on how things go, with the world economy, wars, conflicts, those kind of things. But interest rates are going higher over the next year. Now, debt is actually a specialty of Yellen's. I just, pulled this out, thought this might be interesting. This is a curve of the total U.S. debt, outstanding debt. And the two circled areas are the periods that Yellen was either the Fed chair, co-chair, or since she's been Secretary of Treasury. And if you'll notice, let me see here. If you'll notice, this has a certain slope. And this is 95 through, 2005, 2006. So here you have the slope pretty flat. It increases a little bit here. Then from about 2009 on through 2020, 21, you've got another slope, but it's greatly increased. And this is where the Fed was trying to keep interest rates down. So it was cheaper for the government to borrow more and more. Debt started increasing more rapidly. And then finally, in the current administration, you can see that the increase is almost exponential. The rate of increase is accelerating. That's never a good thing. Monthly borrowing has gone from $200 billion to $460 billion in November. And keep in mind, that's with spending the cash reserves. The cash reserve in November was reduced by about $160 billion. So add that to the $450 billion in borrowing. That gives a total of about $620 billion in deficit spending for 1 month. We spend more in total deficit spending in 1 month now than we would borrow for a whole year 5-6 years ago. This is at an average deficit, an average rate of about $7.5 trillion a year. A year. This is just absolutely incredible. So double that excessive borrowing, and you've got 2025's problem in view. Now, I know all of this is just boring numbers, but my point is these numbers are ultimately going to impact you in your life. The return you get on your investments, where you direct your investments, and price increases that may hit. So you look at all of this, and it has certain fruits. The fruits are that Yellen announced 2 days ago that the Treasury must implement extraordinary measures. Extraordinary measures. Those are her words. What it basically means is that the Treasury is going to do two things. to help pay for the government. One, it's going to stop investing in the retirement and health funds that it invests in for government employees, for postal workers, on down the line, for retirement and health funds. Secondly, it's going to tap the assets of those funds and use them to cover its monthly spending. So not only is it not paying for health and retirement, it's draining the reserves those funds have. That's what we call extraordinary measures. Okay. Now, how long will this last with government spending $650 billion more than it takes in a month? It receives about $400 billion on average. So it has about 3 months of reserves plus whatever assets it can tap in these funds. Bottom line, all these numbers, bottom line, I think we all can pretty much agree that the current financial system, current structure of the financial system is a mess, absolute mess. And it has been for a while. It's not just President Biden's fault. It's been a mess for a while. So, bringing us to crypto, considering alternatives. In light of this confusion, the new administration has taken two, what I consider to be relatively important stances. First of all, it's going to consider a crypto reserve, which has sent crypto critics into a frenzy, an absolute tizzy, which I kind of find amusing. They argue that crypto is a Ponzi scheme. Here, let me pause Sally here. Whoops. Well, okay, it's not in a frame I can pause. So we get to watch old Sally. I don't know if y'all remember that or not. But she was actually, this is Sally Field, the Flying Nun. And she actually won an Oscar for one of her roles. I forget which one, but she was so happy, so giddy. She was up there going, "You like me. You really, really like me." It was kind of cute, kind of embarrassing, but kind of a famous moment in Oscar history. Anyway, the crypto critics, they argue generally two things. One, that crypto is either a Ponzi scheme or it is not a currency. And I just kind of laugh. I do. Because two things. One, people who say it's a Ponzi scheme don't understand what a Ponzi scheme is. A Ponzi scheme is where one person's money, and they argue, well, Ponzi scheme is where one person's money is given to another. Well, that terribly simplistic explanation could apply to any investment. Any investment. Stocks, bonds, gold, whatever. What makes a Ponzi is that it's a fraud. It is not disclosed that your return is based on new investors' money. New investors are not told that their money won't go into an asset or an investment or some right. They aren't told that. In fact, they are told that is what's happening. They aren't told that their money is actually being used to pay prior investors to make it seem like there's a huge return. That's fraud. Crypto, it's disclosed. It's like any asset. The more people want it, the higher the price goes. Ponzi is a fraud. Crypto is disclosed. It's a right. It's an asset.
But it depends. It depends on the crypto. If it's an unlimited cryptocurrency, kind of like printing money, right?
Well, that's a good point. There's 1,000 different cryptos, so obviously I'm not talking about everything out there. I mean, a lot of the meme coins are, to me, kind of entertaining, but not necessarily where I'd want to put my money. But talking really about the main 3 or 4: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Sol, XRP, Ripple. And currency. Most people say who say, like Bitcoin is not currency. They can't define what a currency is. Well, we've talked about this a while back, but the best definition of currency was given by an Austrian economist, a guy by the name of Karl Menger. And he pointed out that currency has one main characteristic. It's called salability. And salability is the ability to translate that currency into goods or services without a loss of value. Now, he described this aspect as having three main, I'll call them factors. Salability according to scale. It means that this unit of currency can be broken down into smaller units and maintain its purchasing power, like a dollar. You can buy as much with 4 quarters as you can a dollar. You can buy as much with 100 pennies as you can a dollar. So whatever the scale is, it maintains its value. Space. Salability according to space. Well, this just simply means that you can transport it easily. You can't transport gold easily. You can't divide it up. You can't scale it easily. So currency needs to be something that can, you can take with you, you can carry, that's recognized across, borders, county lines, whatever. Space. And the third one, and the most important, is salability according to time. Now, some people will talk about a currency is a store of value. You may have heard that term. And they criticize like Bitcoin because it fluctuates a lot every day or every week. But let me ask you a question. When you look at what your dollars buy at the grocery store versus what they did 5 years ago, would you describe the dollar as a store of value? I wouldn't. I went and bought 3 or 4 bags of groceries, which I've been buying for a decade, and it was $160. I used to get that for $30 5 or 6 years ago. It's just absolutely insane. Maybe $40, $45, whatever. But there has been a significant loss of purchasing power. That store of value has not stored value. Meanwhile, over the past 5 years, Bitcoin has maintained its purchasing power. It has even improved its purchasing power. So what's more important to you? Something that stores value over a day or something that stores value over 5 years?
5 years.
To me, I would say 5 years or more. I don't worry about the daily fluctuations or short-term fluctuations in Bitcoin. So to me, based on how I, interpret that term store of value, I argue that Bitcoin fits the definition of a currency better than the dollar does.
I agree.
It's more portable. It scales more infinitely. There's 100,000 Satoshis in each Bitcoin versus 100 pennies in a dollar. And time. It has certainly, over most any 5-year period since its inception in 2008, held its value better than the dollar.
Definitely.
You would be hard-pressed to find a specific 5-year period where it didn't.
Okay, so I have a question about this.
Sure.
Is the Treasury going to buy something like Bitcoin in order to have some sort or backing or value to the dollar?
I'm actually going to defer that question. It's a good question, but I actually talk about that in another minute or two.
Okay, because I was thinking, and I know you're not going to answer it right now, that it's sort of replacing the gold standard. But anyway, go ahead.
Somewhat. Yeah, I'll go ahead and ruin the surprise, but short answer, yes.
Sorry.
Long answer is coming up.
Okay.
Interestingly, and I found this to be a second most impressive or important statement. is incoming Secretary Treasury Balaji stated yesterday that he saw no need for the U.S. to have its own CBDC, central bank digital coin. There have been a move, there's been studies, there's been pilot tests between the Federal Reserve and some primaries, major banks, experimenting with a Federal Reserve digital coin. And the Secretary of Treasury, the administration has basically come out and said, we don't need to do that. We have no need. Also, interestingly, the new Treasury Secretary is a modestly big supporter of crypto. He was a strong pro-crypto hedge fund manager, and his background's in currency. He and Peter Druckenmiller, another guy I admire hugely, were the force behind George Soros' huge pound bet. The British pound, the British currency. Back in the I think it was 93, they established a huge short position against the pound. They netted over $1 billion in profit on one trade. $1 billion, which this is back in 93, 95. That's not bad today, but back in the day, it was legendary. Balaji has argued that crypto is here to stay. He even owns some. It's here to stay. It's bringing people who are not previously or who have not previously been able to participate in the markets. It has brought them in to the markets. Now, Balaji was chosen over another guy, Howard Lutnick of Cantor Fitzgerald, a bond trading house, big bond trading house, kind of a trader to the traders. But Lutnick was picked as the Commerce Secretary. Now, Lutnick is pretty much a pro-crypto guy. He actually helped stablecoin issuer Tether manage its stockpile of treasuries that it uses to back Tether, its USDT stablecoin. So this is undoubtedly a very pro-crypto administration. So I'm not kidding when I say this is a new day for crypto. You've got, for the first time in its existence, almost official government recognition, official government acceptance from the major economic power in the world. Not only recognition, but possible adoption. That's a game changer. The benefits of government adoption, or a reserve of Bitcoin or some other cryptos. First of all, first thing it would do is make it immediately acceptable for transactions around the world, in anywhere in the U.S. This would give people an alternative to give them an alternative to a soft U.S. dollar. And a soft currency is just a currency that loses its value, subject to inflation. It's not hard. It doesn't resist inflation. So as the government borrows more, the government prints more to make the payments. That's what creates inflation, as far as system-wide inflation. Now, a company can experience a raw material that the price is hiked or it becomes a shortage, et cetera. You can have, a unique case of corporate inflation having to raise its prices. But system-wide, if there's systemic inflation, it is always, always, always a monetary event. So the dollar's value has been destroyed because of the printing. So much more dollars being put into the system, into the economy. If a crypto reserve is established, this would give the people an alternative currency. This would be my opinion, a huge incentive to make the dollar harder, to quit printing so much of it, to end or destroy inflation. Secondly, I admit freely, I don't see Bitcoin, for example, being used for small transactions like buying gum or, a bag of groceries or whatever. But I see it more as a backbone for large exchanges, like between banks or international. If I'm traveling international, I'm doing a deal, I need $1 million, I'll probably have it transferred in Bitcoin and then transfer it to local currency versus running it through the SWIFT system, the system that we use to move dollars internationally. The SWIFT system, money could take up to 2 weeks. It would go through 3, 4, 5 different banks, each charging a fee. Bitcoin settles in 5 or 10 minutes, a small fee. Boom, I'm done. Convert it immediately to whatever the local currency is, make the payment immediately. I do the whole deal in 15 minutes versus having to wait a week, possibly 2 weeks for the money to clear. It's just a far more efficient and better means of international currency exchanges or exchanges between large institutions. For the day-to-day spending, I would see a currency like Sol or XRP being used to handle the smaller transactions. So I kind of think the reserve would be more likely a pot of currency, of different crypto, I mean. It won't be just Bitcoin. It'll be a combination, maybe of Bitcoin, of Ethereum, of Sol, of XRP, whatever. Not sure exactly how that will fall out, but I do think it'll be a pot of currencies. As an example, you can look at countries that have adopted or allowed more extensive Bitcoin transactions. El Salvador accepted Bitcoin as its national currency. Over the past 2 years, their economy, inflation has died, and their economy has just turned around. Argentina approved Bitcoin for legally binding contracts. And as now, Bitcoin is used in about 1/3 of all transactions in Argentina. This has been highly, highly influential in stopping the runaway inflation in Argentina. When it was adopted, inflation was around 300%. Their monthly inflation rate last month was 2.4%, which is 25-30% a year. That's a huge drop for them. And if you haven't kept up with what Malay has done over the past year there, hold on, we'll update that shortly, but it has been terribly impressive. A second advantage of a crypto reserve is that it will lift the fortunes of a number of lower and middle class individuals who have some crypto, even if they hold small amounts. It will possibly be the biggest reduction in wealth inequality in our nation's history.
Hey, Clay, is there a slide for this?
No, it's kind of on the same slide.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just
Sorry.
curious. Yeah, you're fine. I know I rushed you to do this stuff tonight.
Actually, this is the slide. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. The closing the gap, the wealth gap in terms of inequality would be hugely beneficial politically. It would also, as Ellen alluded to, it would add to the backing of the US dollar, which has been losing favor around the world. Much like countries, China, for example, has been acquiring gold left and right, trying to support their currency. Investors, foreign exchange investors love countries with strong reserves. It's just a sign of stability. Well, the benefits of a stable currency also benefit the poor and the middle class. because of the cutting of inflation, which robs them of their even modest living standard. It would be a huge benefit to them over time to have a more stable currency with lower inflation. And again, some of those people have been able to establish modest positions in crypto. They would benefit from the appreciation. If the US government does establish a reserve, crypto prices are going to boom. I have no idea how high is high. I've seen some people say if government establishes, for example, a Bitcoin reserve, price could go to $1 million a coin. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm not selling my Bitcoin anytime soon either. So that would be kind of huge. That would be kind of huge. A lot of tangible and some subtle but still important intangible benefits for the U.S. establishing a crypto reserve. The downside, if somebody has something that they see a negative, attached to any of that, let me know. Offhand, I can't really think of anything other than the critics flipping out. I mean, Peter Schiff is going to lose his stuff.
Little bitty mind. Yes, he will.
Yeah. He's been calling Bitcoin a Ponzi since 2010. It's almost the stuff of legends. I would love to meet him so I could explain to him what a Ponzi is. Anyway.
I thought you knew him.
Met him once. He doesn't know me from Adam's house cat.
Gotcha.
All right. You want an interesting character?
Malay.
This guy is it. Malay, the newly elected president of Argentina. He was kind of ridiculed when he was running for office as a TV pundit. Does that sound familiar? We have any TV pundits that have been elected president recently?
Yep.
So a resume is not always what it's cracked up to be. What really matters is the job they do. Well, he literally ran with a chainsaw at his rallies. His promise was to take the chainsaw to government. He's been in office a year, and he's cut the government by about 15,000 employees. He's eliminated 12 of 21 cabinet positions. He's cut over 380,000 regulations. He's opened up oil drilling and exploration and export. And he's cut inflation from 300% to around 30% annualized. He also has turned an $8 billion trade deficit. The country was buying $8 billion more dollars than what it sold. He's turned that deficit into a $19 billion surplus this year. So roughly $20 billion in new capital is flowing into Argentina now. New capital, think more jobs, think higher standards of living. He recorded the first budget surplus in nearly, 20 years. It's been a while. So for 1 year, some really massive successes in changing the whole tenor and tone of government in Argentina. Now, some will argue that poverty has increased in Argentina from 42 to 50, 51%, whatever. But from the research information I gather, I think that's misleading because before, a lot of the quote unquote people were receiving money or had money from like the government or had money on their own, but the shelves were empty. Your money, if you can't buy anything with it, is worthless. but they technically were not considered poor because they had money coming in. Now, their money is more restrained, but there is increasingly more goods, food, whatever, on the shelves. And the people of Argentina, Malay's support has only grown. So I think that statistic, anytime you get statistics, there's the old adage, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So anytime somebody throws out just a bland statistic, you really need to look under the surface and understand more what's going on. Most of the people in Argentina think things are getting better. So, poverty was too high when he took office. Poverty is too high now. But at least now it looks like they've got a chance to reduce it with good jobs and a growing economy, offering improved prosperity to more and more people. That's a success story. Now, I hear, some people talking about, hey, inflation is dead in this country. Well, I just did a rambling look at some of the more important commodities, and just looking at changes in prices in this country since the third quarter lows, which is, August, September. How much of the prices changed in 4 or 5 months? And this is not annualized. This is just the absolute price change in 4 months. Natural gas is up 100%. Coffee's up 38%. Cocoa, 67%. Y'all looked at the prices of chocolate lately? It's getting stupid. I like dark chocolate.
So glad. I'm so glad that you did this, because I went to the store the other day and I was like, am I just crazy? Or has everything gotten higher?
Yeah. Eggs are up 77%. At the store I went to, they have more than doubled. Beef, 12%. Over a 4-month period,
that's a lot.
That's a 36% annual increase. Wheat, 13, orange juice, soybeans, 7, corn, 31, metals, all increasing, rare earth materials, gasoline's up 18%, Bitcoin up 181%. Just thought I'd throw that in for the fun of it.
I like that.
Yeah, since we're talking about protecting purchasing power.
Mm-hmm.
So, when somebody says, yeah, inflation is dead, the Fed can continue cutting, I just kind of have to shake my head. I'm like, what kind of world are you living in? You look at the reality, not some of these, twisted propaganda numbers. And, even looking at the CPI, core CPI is gone up from, what was it, 2.2% in September to 2.4 to 2.7 to 2.9%. It's increased every month. That's not a sign that inflation is decreasing.
Like Melissa says, eat the bugs.
Thanks for the encouragement, Melissa. Melissa's got several comments here.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen usually handles the comments. I don't pay close attention to them unless she throws them up.
I put them up, but yeah.
Sorry. That B is for bean. Green bean. Yeah, protein power. I've had to eat bugs before, and it should no. No, just not a fan. So there you go. Is inflation dead? I've consistently argued it is not. Some people never forget.
She's back to dandelions now.
She's back to dandelions.
Spring's coming. So she's got to make sure you got it in your head.
I will. How about if I dig them up and just make tea out of them instead of spraying them? Is that a decent compromise? Yeah, Melissa, you missed the Alvin reminders earlier. Sorry, not sorry. So, anybody have any questions? While we have this minute, if you will, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Do the YouTubey things, the Rumbly things, the Tweeter things. It helps our what do you call it?
The algorithm, and it costs you nothing.
Yes. I've actually got a bag of dandelion tea. I've had a couple glasses. It's up in the cabinet, and I kind of forget about it, but it's not bad. It tastes a little bit like dark burnt coffee, which is not bad to me.
And yes, Melissa, it always comes back to dandelions and bugs.
That's kind of scary when you put it that way.
Does it not?
We haven't talked about the Great Reset in a while, but this election basically sounded the death knell for the Great Reset. I mean, they were adamantly opposed to Trump winning. Mm-hmm. So I think in terms of having and to me, like I showed you some of the prices of food, a lot of this is because so many governments have been trying to put farmers out of business and restrict what they do, tax what they do more, limit what they can sell, how they can sell it, limit their ability to utilize land. So when you see prices of food increasing at these kind of rates consistently across the board for a sustained period of time, is it a feature or is it a bug? No pun intended.
Oh, you kind of intended it.
Yeah. But you get the idea. Government wants some of these food items, the price to increase so that you eat less of it. They want you eating less meat. So they enact policies to make, they're not going to tell you can't eat meat. They just enact policies that make it more and more expensive. So, this is not an accident. And, you see mysterious fires springing up at huge chicken processing plants.
A lot of food plants.
Yeah, a lot of food plants. So, what's going on? Anyway, we can't solve all that tonight, but if you would do the YouTubey things, spread the quan, spread the love,
and the Xy things, and the rumbly things, and
the Xy things and the rumbly things. Any questions, comments, thoughts? For those of you that are new and watching, we normally have a Q&A session on Tuesday nights. I mean, we'll have some stuff and talk about stuff, but it's really a time for you to ask questions or discuss any kind of topic you want. We've had questions on hair coloring. We'll probably talk about washers and dryers. We may cover cartoons. You just never know. And we'll throw in some current financial information or news or talk about the markets. So for those of you that are watching for the first time, hope you'll join us on Tuesday evenings. And then we're here every Saturday night as well. So anybody have any other questions, comments?
I might have to get you another co-host for Saturday.
You won't be moving?
Mm-hmm.
That might be, it might be a risk. If it doesn't snow, and the snow is looking increasingly unlikely, at least in any measurable amount. Yeah, a few days ago, they were talking about 14 inches of snow here. That has since dropped to about 1 inch. So I'm kind of thinking it won't happen at all.
Probably not.
So.
We do.
What would be a good movie?
We need to put a poll up on suggestions for one on the community page and on X.
Yeah, you can't put a poll up for suggestions, but we can take
You can ask for
suggestions
suggestions.
now.
Yeah.
We can, yeah. If y'all have some suggestions on movies that you might like to do a movie, and movie club night is just where we sit around and discuss a particular movie. We did some books, but movies seem to be a little bit better fit in terms of time and interest. So, are there any movies that y'all would enjoy watching, seeing, rewatching? Um,
I have to think about it.
I saw one a couple of weeks ago called Homestead. It was in the theaters. I don't think it's out yet.
We'll have to wait on that one then.
Yeah, but it was kind of an interesting movie. Some of my favorites, and I know this one won't get many votes, but Patton, an all-time eternal classic. Braveheart, good old Scottish movie. Who can't love a good Scottish movie?
Well, I mean, I don't know. We did Braveheart though, right? Oh, you said Patton.
I said both.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I said I doubted Patton would get much support.
Probably not.
But y'all think about it, and because this kind of came out of left field. But if you've got some suggestions, yeah, we did do Braveheart.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got some suggestions, then email us or tweet them out. You can send it to E-Train or myself, either way. But there's tons of good movies out there, and some of them would be fun to see and discuss. So let's see if we can find something, and we'll have another movie night.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else? We are getting near the end of the show. It is 9:00, which is normally about E-Train's bedtime.
And I still have stuff to pack for the move this weekend. I got so much to do, or next weekend. So many things to do.
Yeah, I do not envy you in all that. But
yeah, I don't envy me either. But it'll be a good thing.
It will. Good luck. Well, thank y'all for being with us tonight. We very much appreciate your support, your comments, your questions, your feedback. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Hopefully Tuesday night, or
definitely Tuesday.
Yeah, next Saturday. We may just not do a Saturday night because I've got a lot of stuff going on too. I've got a big report to do. Yeah, so that if Ellen can't do it, it probably would be a convenient time for me to try to get a little bit more work done. So, but we'll let you know. We love you guys. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Our time is up. We thank you for yours.
Night, everybody.
Good night, y'all. Blessings to you.